Algeria 1962, Freedom Written in Blood. This is Freedom Files, the untold story of how nations broke their chains. When France invaded Algeria in 1830, it did not arrive as a temporary ruler. It arrived as an owner. French settlers took land, farms, cities, and political control. Indigenous Algerians were displaced, pushed into poverty, and governed under laws that treated them as inferior in their own homeland. Algeria was legally declared part of France, but Algerians were not considered fully French. They paid taxes, they obeyed laws, they served in wars, but they had no voice. For over a century, Algerians tried to resist peacefully. They petitioned, they organized. They protested, they were ignored. And when they were not ignored, they were punished. By the mid-20th century, peaceful reform had failed. On November 1, 1954, the National Liberation Front, known as the FLN, launched coordinated attacks across Algeria. The Algerian War of Independence had begun. It was not a conventional war. It was a war of shadows. Guerrilla fighters struck military targets and disappeared into villages, mountains, and cities. France responded with overwhelming force. Hundreds of thousands of troops were deployed. Villages were burned. Entire communities were relocated. Torture became systematic. Disappearances became common. Civilians were trapped between fighters and armies. France called it a police operation. Algerians called it a war for survival. The conflict lasted 8 years. It traumatized both societies. French soldiers returned home broken. Algerian families buried children, parents, and entire villages. Yet the movement did not stop. International pressure grew. Protests erupted in France. Writers, journalists, and activists exposed the brutality. The moral authority of the empire collapsed. Finally, in 1962, France agreed to negotiate. The Evian Accords were signed. On July 5, 1962, Algeria became independent. Celebrations erupted, but they were quiet, because almost every family had lost someone. Freedom had come, but it had come through fire. Algeria's story reminds us that when oppression is absolute, resistance becomes inevitable. And when power refuses to listen, history finds a louder voice. Justice delayed becomes violence invited. Some nations are not freed, they are forged.